Welcome to Fast Draw 101. I'm Howard Darby. Today we're at the All Japan Fast Draw Championships to learn about how they do Fast Draw in Japan.
Shooters on the line. Shooters, set.
Fast Draw in Japan is split into areas similar to North America, with the four areas being Kantao, which includes Tokyo, Chubu, which includes Nagoya, Kansai, which includes Osaka and Kobe, and Kyushu, which includes Fukuoka and Nagasaki. The All Japan contest rotates among the four areas, with the 2014 contest taking place in Fukuoka. Now let's take a look at what I learned when competing at a Japanese Fast Draw contest. The All Japan Fast Draw Championship is the major contest at the end of each year. Most contests occur indoors due to often rainy weather and can be held there because the ammunition used in Japan requires minimal distance and backstops. The contests are run pretty much the same as in North America. There's the sign-up, gun and ammo check, scorekeepers and announcers, shooting orders listed on the scoreboard, a dry fire area, and a shooters meeting at the start of the contest. Contests are run using World Fast Draw Association rules, but there are some differences that make Fast Draw in Japan unique. Most of the differences are due to Japanese gun laws that don't allow public ownership of real guns. Shooters in Japan must use guns made primarily of hard plastic. They are only allowed to shoot small blanks with a blast that travels a few feet or plastic BBs like those used in airsoft guns. By slight changes of the WFDA rules and targets, shooters can use this equipment to successfully shoot Fast Draw. Let's start with the blank events, which are shot using 8-inch balloons. As mentioned, the blanks are smaller than those used in North America and only travel a few feet with enough blast to break a balloon. The barrel of blank guns is partially blocked by a piece of metal across the front and rear of the barrel, plus a partial blockage at the front of the cylinder, preventing solid objects from being ejected. The 6 pieces in a row here are what make up a blank load. Here's how they're put together to make a Fast Draw blank. The caps come in a box of 100. They are plastic with a small amount of powder inside, connected in sheets of 50. Two caps are used in each blank. In the base of the shell you place the brass push rod that fills the primer pocket, which is struck by the firing pin. On top of that, you place one of the caps with the powder facing upwards towards the top of the shell. You then place the other cap in the top of the shell with the powder facing down into the shell and the plastic facing towards the open end of the shell, sealing the shell. A small hollow block is then placed between the caps in the base of the shell with the nipple end towards the lower cap. This nipple is like the one used on a cap and ball pistol. When the firing pin hits the primer rod, it pushes the cap into the nipple, igniting the powder with the gases going through the hollow block toward the front of the shell. The top and bottom of the shell are then screwed together to make the final blank. When the blank is fired in a gun, the bottom cap ignites, sending sparks and hot gases into the top cap, which also ignites. The combined pressures contained within the shell are enough to force their way out the only way available, by punching a hole through the plastic of the top cap and out the front of the shell and down the barrel. Most shooters load a group of blanks at once. There are caps with more powerful charges, with this shooter using the red powerful ones at the base of the shell and the regular cap at the top. The unloading process is the reverse of the loading process. You unscrew the shell, push the primer pocket rod and cap out of the base of the shell, pull a block from the top of the shell, then push the upper cap from the top of the shell. Notice that the cap on the right that was at the top of the shell has now become domed. it has a hole blown through it where the gases force their way through and out the top of the shell. These blanks work well with the balloon placed at the 40 centimeter distance used in Japan, which is about 14 inches. Now let's take a look at the wax events. The wax events we shoot in North America are shot in Japan using what they call gas guns. These guns use compressed air and plastic BBs, the same as airsoft guns. Here's how it works. The cylinder of the gas gun is two parts: an inner drum that holds the compressed gas and does not rotate, and an external part that rotates around the gas drum, which has a hole for filling gas into the inner drum. Here's a better look. You can see the brass gas port in the hole in one of the fake shells. As the outer part of the cylinder is rotated 360 degrees, the hole lines up again. In the front of the cylinder, you'll find a small hole at the top of the inner gas drum where the gas escapes to fire the BB. This hole is always lined up with the barrel, and the BBs rotate in front of it to fire each time the hammer is dropped. A burst of gas is released through the hole in the front of the cylinder when the center pin in the cylinder is depressed. You can see that the gas gun does not have a standard firing pin. Instead, the dropping of the hammer pushes the center pin, allowing the release of gas. If you look closely, you'll notice that the hammer of a gas gun does not push directly against the frame when in a resting position. The center pin in the cylinder has enough pressure to prevent the resting hammer from triggering the release of gas. However, when the hammer falls from the fully cocked position, it has enough force to briefly depress the center pin, releasing a burst of gas, sending the BB down the barrel at just over 250 feet per second. There are different ways to load BBs into the gun. The simplest method is to place them in the 6 holes in the front of the cylinder one at a time by hand, pushing them down by finger pressure to snap them into place. Some shooters use a device that pops one BB into the front of the chamber each time they depress the plunger. They then snap the BBs into place with their finger. This saves from having to fiddle with picking up the small BBs and making it faster to load 6 at a time. The fastest method is to use this device. The red knob fits into the barrel, and the hole on the right goes over the end of the ejector rod housing. Since there is no use for an actual ejector rod on these guns, the ejector housing is a hollow tube used to feed the BBs to the front of the cylinder. The shooter puts the red knob in the barrel and upends the gun. Shakes the bottle to drop BBs down the ejector housing tube. Rotates the cylinder to drop BBs into each chamber, then snaps the BBs in place with their fingers. Once they've loaded the chambers, they simply point downwards to send the unused BBs in the tube back into the bottle. The gas chamber is charged by lining up the hole in the back of the cylinder with the nozzle port on the inner drum. Inserting the tip of the can of compressed air into the nozzle and pushing on the can. To unload and show clear, the shooter fires the gun at least 6 times into the backstop netting, then places a red stopper down the barrel to show the gun is safe. This ensures a BB couldn't come far out of the barrel during an accidental discharge. Personally, I found the BBs with the gas guns to be almost identical to shooting wax bullets, with about 4/100ths of a second slower time than I'd see with shotgun primers. One thing I found interesting is that using the gas guns without BBs makes for a nice way to dry fire. The shooters set up a business card at the height of the target, then check their aim by dry firing within a few feet so the puff of air from the gas knocks down the card. As mentioned earlier, fast draw contests in Japan are run using WFDA rules. They have both index and elimination contests with open and traditional styles. They're still utilizing the hands-off style, so Lawman Ready is not yet used, other than some specialized side events. The All Japan Championships uses the same events each year. It's a traditional style index contest with standing blanks, double blanks, and standing wax at 8 feet using the gas guns and BBs. By the way, take a look at the barrel of the shooter on the right. Let's take a look at that draw again. Most single-shot events are 5 of 7, meaning they shoot 7 shots but only count the best 5 times in the event total. This came about due to the inconsistency of the blank guns in the early days of the sport, but even now that the guns and blanks are more consistent, this system is still in use. Double blanks are 3 of 5. This year's All Japan Championship was won by a shooter that goes by the alias Goose. By the way, if you win a contest in Japan, be ready to go for a ride, because the tradition is for the other shooters to throw the winner in the air a few times. I traveled to Japan with fellow fast draw shooter Mike Avetikian to film this video. We'd like to thank Billy Shimada, Tex Matsumoto, Colt Yamada, and Robert Ono for their help getting us to Japan to shoot in the championships, as well as all the Japanese shooters who welcomed us and offered their friendship. We will meet again, my friends.